Coming up on Over a Barrel.
We are now at the highest level for oil that we've been at since April.
And gas prices are now shooting up at the local pumps across the country. Over a Barrel starts right now.
I'm Patrick DeHaan. Here we are, episode 21. I'm with my co-host, Matt McLean. We are greeting you here in the month of July for our weekly update. And Matt, I feel like the last couple of months, gas prices haven't been so exciting, but, now the popcorn's coming and here we go.
Oh, I was just getting ready to say it's been kind of stagnant, kind of like the temperatures across the country, just plain hot. And that's just the way it works. How are you doing?
I'm doing terrific. As you mentioned, it's getting warmer. We are basically in the peak of the U.S. driving season for summer. It does not get any busier than where we are now. It's late July. Americans are hitting the road. I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but as we start to get into the month of August, we start to hear more and more about back to school. And that's why demand is not likely to surge much beyond where we are today. So this is really the height of the summer, and enjoy it while we can.
I've been looking and monitoring, of course, the oil prices and other aspects, and it's been fairly stagnant, but I have noticed a slight upward trend over the past week or two. Yeah. Can you talk to us about that just a little bit? Because it's, natural gas has been falling and other aspects, but oil itself seems to be, approaching like a 3-month high at this point.
Yeah, it is at a 3-month high. If you were sleeping, listening to the podcast, you'd think, hey, everything's normal. Oil prices still in the 70s. But, Matt, we are now at the highest level for oil that we've been at since April. Barrel of West Texas Intermediate crude oil now just less than 100 cents away from that, or what we call a dollar. We're at $79.04 a barrel, $79.06 now, with Brent crude oil at $83 a barrel. So again, if you fell asleep, you're probably scratching your head and saying, well, what in the world happened? And we have seen a turnaround here very quickly. The price of oil has advanced. Russia and Saudi Arabia have really gotten together now to cut production in a more meaningful way. We've also seen the end to those releases from the nation's Strategic Petroleum Reserve. Matt, that's been a huge political issue, right? Everyone's been upset that the U.S. is releasing SPR crude oil, but that's now behind us, and coupled with OPEC cutting oil production, that's really the meat and bones and why oil prices are advancing. And, Matt, we actually yesterday saw the biggest one-day increase in the national average price of gasoline since March. It jumped over 3 cents, which 3 cents doesn't sound like a whole lot to get, too worried about. But I'll keep in mind that is an average, Matt, of 150,000 stations. So that's actually a pretty significant jump.
So I was in 2 states yesterday as of the time of this recording, and I actually pulled out my Gas Buddy app and thankfully saved quite a bit of money with regard to the fill-up. But some of the stations that I had noticed over the weekend where, again, I'm in the Midwestern area. I know you poor folks on the West Coast pay like a ridiculous amount per gallon. But me, myself, and I, where I'm located, on Friday, it was like $3.12 a gallon. And yesterday morning, as I was wanting to fill up, a lot of stations had bolted to like $3.36 a gallon, $3.39 a gallon. Fortunately, because of the Gas Buddy app, I was still able to get a station where after my savings, I paid $3.04 a gallon. But even those stations now that were yesterday a slight cheaper are beginning to climb. So is this as a direct result of the crude oil? Is this because of what Russia and Saudi Arabia are doing? I mean, what's causing the sudden jolt, if you will, of 25 to 30 cents?
Well, first and foremost, Matt, for anyone that's listening and you're looking at your tank, your fuel gauge is below a quarter tank, listen up because we have some words of caution. Fill up, because retailers are quite a bit behind on passing along the recent surge in the price of gasoline. So, if there's any takeaway, we are telling you to be very cautious and to fill your tank up, because I think the national average will probably make a nice jump in the next week, over the next week, of probably 10 to maybe as much as 20 cents a gallon. The only good news is that while the price of oil is up today, the wholesale price of gasoline is down a couple of cents a gallon, Matt. But again, still, the wholesale price of gasoline is at its highest level since April. And as you're pointing out, some states are reacting far more swiftly. Some stations are. We're seeing big increases in Kentucky, Indiana, Ohio, Michigan, Illinois, even in Florida. We've seen prices jumping up yesterday in Florida to $3.69 a gallon. A lot of these states, Matt, engage in what we call price cycling. That is, there's a lot of competition that drives prices below cost, right? There's a lot of people that have been reaching out to the over a barrel inbox, sending us emails saying, hey, my price went up 40 to 60 cents. What in the world's going on? Some of these stations, Matt, are operating, or they were selling gasoline at or below their replacement cost. And keep in mind, since the replacement cost has been jumping, Matt, the wholesale price of diesel in the Great Lakes is up 60 cents in the last 2 weeks. So stations can very quickly go from selling gasoline at cost to being 60 cents behind on adjusting their prices.
Oh, my goodness.
And that's where you're going to get some of these increases. So again, the call to action today, if you're looking at your fuel gauge and it's a little low, sooner rather than later is when you're going to want to fill your tank up, unless you like, burning money or flushing it down a toilet, because I do expect that, Matt, for almost the majority of listeners coast to coast into Canada, gas prices will be higher a week from today compared to where they are now. So don't delay.
Yeah, so it's funny you should mention that. While you were talking, I went ahead and opened up the Gas Buddy app, and the second you and I are done with this podcast, I did find a station for $2.94 a gallon. And of course, the normal station that I normally get gas at is $3.49 a gallon. So you know what I'm going to be doing? I'm leaving. I'm going to put the headphones on the thing, and I'm going to go get gas at $2.94 a gallon.
Well,
before it jolts.
and before you jump in your car, Matt, make sure that price has been posted in the last hour or two, because with how quickly stations are raising their prices, it's hard for us. Stations are obviously going up very quickly. I encountered this yesterday, Matt, where the station that I ultimately went, it showed up at $3.29 in the Gas Buddy app. And between the 20 minutes that I saw it and got there, the price was actually $3.39. And again, prices do change. So keep in mind when you're checking the Gas Buddy app, look at those timestamps. Pay attention. Was that price posted an hour ago, or was it posted 19 hours ago? Because obviously, if it was yesterday's price, it may have changed.
It is yesterday's price. Thanks.
So be very careful then. That's the one thing I like to draw attention to, because although Gas Buddy gets 11 million prices reported to us every week, especially in an environment, Matt, where prices are changing so rapidly, I don't want you to get to that station and find out it's, $3.19 or $3.39. So just make sure, and this goes for everyone listening, check the timestamp, right? It's every price has a timestamp to it. Just make sure the timestamp's recent, because prices are rapidly changing.
So that also brings me to the next point that I was going to bring out, and I've noticed a bit of a disparity between the regular 87 octane unleaded versus the premium. So the station that I was at, and I actually put it into the Gas Buddy app myself, I noticed that the price point was for my unleaded gas, the price that I quoted, what was it, $3.03, $3.04 a gallon, but the mid-tier was $3.54, and the premium was $3.99 a gallon. That's a heck of a difference between 87 octane and like the 92 or 93 octane.
Yeah, and that's actually becoming more common, Matt. Here in Chicago, the difference between regular and premium is $1.20 at my corner store. So most of the Midwest, most of the Great Lakes, Matt, now you're going to find about $1 a gallon difference between regular and premium, or what we'll call a 50-cent grade gap, a 50-cent difference between regular and mid-grade, and a 50-cent difference between mid-grade and premium, making that difference between regular and premium almost $1 a gallon. It's pretty rare that you see it less. Now, if you go to California, Matt, or the West Coast, where they consume more premium, where there's more capacity to produce premium, California still has a grade gap that's like 30 cents a gallon. So premium in California generally is about 30 cents more than regular. So you're going to find a big difference. And Matt, if you're lucky enough, I found a couple stations to be unnamed because I don't want to give their secrets away. But some stations in Michigan over the weekend have been selling mid-grade for the same price as regular. And the only reason I fill up with mid-grade is because my motorcycle actually wants 90 octane. And for those at home, there's no 90 octane that you can get at your local, regular's 87, mid-grade is 89, premium is 93. So what I end up doing, Matt, is I have a little bit of premium 93 octane left in my tank. I top it off or I fill up with mid-grade, which will bring the octane rating down close to that 90 octane that my manufacturer requires.
Why would they create something that's impossible?
It's weird because it's right on the edge of mid-grade and premium. So it befuddles my mind. It's probably something that just, I don't know, because I don't even think in Europe you'd find a product that has an octane rating of 90. Even in Europe, where they use a different octane methodology system, the premium octane is 95 or 98 octane. So here in the United States, and by the way, those are all octane numbers. Here in the United States, our premium is 93 or 91, depending on where you are. It's just a different way it's calculated, but it's still the octane number.
There is a station here not far from where I live that sells ethanol-free racing fuel, and I've been tempted, but I'm like, no, I better not do that. I'm not sure my vehicle would appreciate.
Is that 100 octane?
I believe so. Yes, I believe.
It's probably also $7 or $8 a gallon, if not more.
It's like $1.50 more than like regular unleaded, or $1.60 more than regular unleaded. But yeah, okay. I was in.
Well, then maybe it's 98 octane because I know you get the 100 octane and 110 octane if it's unleaded, and especially if it's ethanol free. Some of those hundreds, 110s go for easily $8 to $10 a gallon.
Yeah, no, it's not that here. The octane it's up there right around 100. The next time I drive by that station, I need to get gas. I will actually get a photo and I will send it to you. But either way, I think probably my SUV may not appreciate the excess octane, or maybe it will love it and I'll be levitating on the road. I don't know the answer to that, but either way, I just felt like, I'll just stick with my 87 octane like we've discussed in previous podcasts.
Yeah, don't overbuy. And Matt, I realize a lot of people are probably salivating over, hey, we talked about the price of oil going up. What else is going on that's causing the price of gasoline? Because it's a noticeable jump, Matt. I mean, the biggest single day increase since March is not something that is just happening. And by the way, the national average as we sit here is also up almost another 2 cents a gallon here today. So pretty fast and furious out of left field, right? It was a quiet start to the week. Now prices are really starting to jump up. And it's not just because of the price of oil. Keep in mind, as we mentioned, the price of oil has gone up because of Saudi Arabia and Russia really curtailing production at the same time that the releases have ended from the nation's strategic petroleum reserve. Matt, the other piece of the puzzle is heat. The temperatures outside are really starting to sear and cook. And we've talked about how Texas and Louisiana have a ton of the nation's refining capacity. And as it turns out, that heat dome is directly over the South, over some of those refineries. And keep in mind, these refineries matter outside. How many heat-related injuries and deaths have we seen in the last week? It's been high. You've seen people in Nevada and Arizona succumbing to the heat because humans are not supposed to be outside at such insanely high temperatures. Refineries also struggle under the heat, Matt, whether it's equipment-related malfunctions or Texas has been struggling with its grid for years. Matt, even a 20-second power outage is enough to knock a refinery out for not just 20 more seconds, but it can take days for refineries to get their processes going again, to get back online. So the heat is actually one of the biggest reasons for the sudden jump in prices because of the amount of heat in Texas and Louisiana. That's where 50% of the nation's, over 50% of the nation's total refining capacity are in those two states where there are extremely high temperatures. It's knocking out not just one, not two, not three, not four, but almost a half dozen refineries, Matt, are having some unexpected disruptions as it relates to the heat. So that's the other piece of the puzzle here. And, one of the refineries, ExxonMobil's refinery in Beaumont, Texas, Baytown, has signaled that it may be several weeks before they're able to get one of their units completely back online. So this is not good news. And that is what's contributing to us telling you, go fill up. If you need gas, if you're on E, fill up because prices are going to go up. I mean, if you're already on full, just be ready for higher prices, right? I don't want to, there's no room. And I mean, it's not going to be as bad as last year, Matt. So even if you're on E and you're not finding a station that's as low as you want to pay, just be ready for prices to advance. But again, we're not talking about the national average going up to $4 yet. I think the national average could go up another 10 to 20 cents over the next week or two. But keep in mind, Matt, that's still a pretty big discount to last year when we were still paying $4.32 a gallon. We're paying about $3.60 today.
One of the things that I've been monitoring very closely is obviously the potential. We are in the middle of hurricane seasons. We're talking about, prices and the impact on oil production.
You just had to go there, didn't you?
I did. And one of my favorite places on earth where I used to live for years, the Tampa, Florida area. They have a big bay there, obviously called Tampa Bay, obviously. And I've been monitoring water temperatures really all across the Gulf of Mexico and beyond. And we are seeing some temperatures like nothing I ever saw when I lived in Florida. Water temperatures are approaching, if not surpassing, that triple digit mark. Water over 100 degrees in an ocean seems unfathomable to me. So the concept is, and what I'm getting at is, there's plenty of fuel out there for the potential for hurricanes. August and September are the height of hurricane season for the Atlantic Basin. So we are approaching August, and then you have the heat that's impacting the refineries as well. I mean, there could be several issues there that we may be facing over the next couple of months.
I mean, you're talking about a bear that's been hibernating for the winter, waking up to a free Las Vegas food buffet. That's what we're talking about here with potential for these hurricanes. They have an endless amount of energy that they can just consume. And maybe a grizzly bear waking up after hibernation, going to Las Vegas buffet for free. I mean, the bear's it's gonna gorge itself because it's been famished. So, I mean, that's kind of what hurricane season could look like, Matt. I mean, you're talking about endless sources of energy. When the water temperature is 100 degrees, these hurricanes are going to feed off of that. Now, we've been lucky so far in that some of the weather conditions, the wind shear,
steering currents have not been conducive to that. Unfortunately, that usually collapses. That's why August and September are the height.
And so when that does collapse, all of a sudden it's like paving a yellow brick road to the United States, right? Because as you get closer in the Gulf of Mexico, the SSTs, the sea surface temperatures are extremely high. So, Matt, there's enough on our plate, with all the heat related issues and OPEC and oil. And now you had to say the H word. So it's out there now. You can't take it back. But that's becoming more of a concern, Matt, is that if we get a couple major hurricanes in the next few weeks, there is a lot of energy in which those hurricanes could consume in the form of extremely warm water temperatures. As you mentioned, one of the readings in the Everglades yesterday, it may be a little bit overdone because the Everglades tends to be cloudy water and there could be foreign objects that are boosting that water temperature, but a water temperature of 101 degrees. And right now, I believe in the Bay of Kuwait, the modern record, sea surface temperature records are extremely limited. But from what I know, the highest water reading that was ever recorded was in the Bay of Kuwait at 101 degrees. And we are now rivaling that. So there is a higher level of concern that on top of everything, on top of the heat impacting refineries, on top of the oil prices now at $79 a barrel, now we have hurricane season to contend with as well. So, really quickly, what's the saying, Matt? That escalated quickly.
Yeah, right. So, I mean, we're not out of the woods by any stretch of the imagination, and that doesn't even get into the geopolitical aspects. Russia now, attacking Odessa, Ukraine, where the grain refineries are at, which is obviously a food commodity, and it's an area of concern. But the reality of it all, what I'm getting at is that geopolitical situation is highly volatile and unstable. We don't know what's going to happen day to day on that, which depending, as you've mentioned, Russia and Saudi Arabia teaming up on oil prices and the amount of oil that they're producing. we could run into some hiccups in that regard on top of a hurricane, on top of the heat, on top of the refinery issues, on top of the, the icing on the cake, so to speak. That could create some additional issues.
Yeah, it certainly could. I feel like comparing cake to rising gas prices. Cake is delicious. All the layers of issues on the gas price cake don't sound nearly as tempting to me. But I mean, you're exactly right. There's a lot to contend with right now. And going into the closing innings of summer, Matt, as you mentioned, the peak of hurricane season really starts in late August and goes through late September. So, knock on wood that we'll make it through. But for now, to your point, there is a lot cooking. Not just the country's air temperatures, but there's a lot of potential that, this fall, Matt, I'm a little bit less optimistic, more pessimistic now that this fall we may not see the lower prices that we were hoping we'd see. In fact, if we do get a hurricane, Matt, we could be talking about a national average that very quickly escalates to $4 a gallon. So keep that in mind.
You're the one who had to go.
Well,
this time.
You started it. You started with hurricanes, so now I've got to tell folks that, the outlook is a little bit more negative than what we thought a few weeks ago. So keep that in mind. If you have any driving plans for Labor Day, keep in mind that there is some upside risk to what we're talking about, and prices maybe, especially in a hurricane situation, Matt, prices may be relatively elevated.
So we will definitely be keeping all of those things in mind. This is temperatures this week are beginning to escalate across the country yet again. I know here in the Midwest, I'm looking at highs in the 100s again later this week as of the recording of this particular podcast. So we definitely have our fair share of issues that are, plaguing and impacting different aspects. So, yeah, certainly something to keep in play there. You have got to be quite busy with all of these different things. I would have to imagine that you're being interviewed by TV stations, radio stations, networks, really across the country by quite a bit, I would think.
It's, it had been a couple of weeks that were quiet, which is great because my basement flooded back in early July. So I've been able to deal with that. But as you mentioned, Matt, when gas prices start to get going, so does the blood pressure of Americans who are filling their tanks. So it has gotten quite a bit busier with interest into what's going on. Why is it happening? And, there's a lot to be said. I think Americans have an obsession with refineries. They see one go down, and I think that the general consensus is it doesn't matter where the refinery is. They hear of gas and they hear of refinery, and it's like, well, Americans think that prices are going to surge, but it's not always the case. But in this situation, there does appear to be some upside. So, Matt, I'm glad you filled your tank up yesterday, and it sounds like your travels have you on a low tank now. So
it's on a low tank again. Yes, I've
you made
of gas in 24 hours.
Well, at least you have to pay with Gas Buddy card now, right?
Yes, I do, and it did save me money. And yes, it does ask for that little driver ID thing, the little PIN number or whatever. But it did save me money. Yeah, I go through a lot of gas. No question about it.
Well, at least hopefully you find those deal alerts, Matt, because I was traveling yesterday. Like I mentioned, I went to Iowa yesterday afternoon just to help on a moving trip. And I saved 12 cents a gallon with the Gas Buddy app. Basically, didn't take any work. That's the beauty of it. I paid. And for those who are wondering, you can get more information about the Pay with Gas Buddy card by going to pay.gasbuddy.com or doing a Google search. Again, that's a payments card that links with your checking account to save you up to 20 cents a gallon. Actually, I think it's up to 25 cents a gallon with what we call deal alerts. I said I got a deal for 12 cents a gallon off yesterday. But sign up for that card if you like to save a little bit of money, or if you don't, you can still use the Gas Buddy app to find those low prices. But Matt, I know it's the closing innings of the summer driving season, but if hurricane season ramps up, that Pay with Gas Buddy card could reap dividends in savings. It kind of helps defray the rising costs when prices do go up.
And at the sound of being a shameless plug, the premium membership, if I'm not mistaken, even includes roadside assistance. Am I crazy in thinking that?
Yeah, Matt. So if you want to go above and beyond, and the shameless plug is I have that card myself as well, because, it's a guaranteed 20 cents off then, Matt, and you can get up to 40 cents a gallon off with deal alerts via the premium version. I know you're probably thinking premium. Well, we actually named our premium product the same as the grade of gas premium. So the premium card, Matt, costs $9.99 a month, but includes roadside assistance. And it also guarantees a 20 cents a gallon savings on every gallon for the first 50 gallons a month. So it certainly adds up. If you're one of those, Matt, that drives a lot, I like the guaranteed savings of at least 20 cents off. But like I said, sometimes you'll find 40 cents a gallon off. Matt, I filled up with the premium on my motorcycle. I got 35 cents a gallon off on premium. So, you're talking about credit cards that may give you 2%. That pales in comparison to 35 cents a gallon off. So check out the Premium with Gas Buddy, premium Pay with Gas Buddy card. As you mentioned, it does have roadside assistance as well.
Yeah, I'm actually looking for it right now on the app. If you want the truth, I need to go ahead and do that.
And by the way, for those that don't want to navigate on the web, just go in the Gas Buddy app and look for the Pay with Gas Buddy card. It does, a lot of questions too on how it works. It does link to your checking account. So it's not Gas Buddy that's asking for your checking account information, but we do have a platform used by Venmo and PayPal. We don't get any of your bank account information, Matt. So we do not have that. That third party links those two together. So you're not giving us your checking account. We do. The payments processor, part of financial requirements, also do require us, though, to take your driver's license information to make sure you're a valid user. And again, that has to do with U.S. financial requirements. That is not something that we want to know, that we really care about, but we have to do it because of regulations. So, I know there's a lot of concerns out there about identity. That information is only asked for because it's required, and we also don't receive bank account information.
Yeah. Well, that's always good to know. I was curious myself, so I did not know that. I thought, I didn't know Gas Buddy was processing my stuff, so that is good for me to know. I had no clue.
Absolutely.
So,
a knowledgeable consumer is a better consumer.
Absolutely. So to wrap up this week's episode, what are you seeing for the next 7 days, barring any weird oddball situation that pops out there? But I mean, what are you kind of thinking for the next 7 days or so?
Well, I think, Matt, for most of us, probably a majority, 45 out of the nation's 50 states, probably even 50 out of the nation's 50 states, Matt, we'll see average prices go up anywhere from 10 to 25 cents over the next 1 to 2 weeks. So we are going to be in a pretty significant, pretty noticeable upward trend, and that's going to affect most people, probably by and large, almost everyone. Maybe the needle in the haystack if you see prices go down, but almost everyone over the next 1 to 2 weeks will see gasoline and diesel prices moving up. So be ready, be prepared. Make sure to shop around with Gas Buddy and check out those timestamps. Gas prices will go up. And of course, Matt, we'll always keep you updated. You can follow me on Twitter, Gas Buddy Guy, and I think you're Over a Barrel Matt. So
yes, sir. And also Over a Barrel Show as well.
That's right.
Directly on the show and by email.
That's right. Podcast@gasbuddy.com is where you can shoot us an email. Keep a watch on some of our social media channels. If there are any developments, especially if there's hurricanes, you can always check us out. Over a Barrel Show. I'm at Gas Buddy Guy and Over a Barrel Matt, all on Twitter. And again, shoot us an email to podcast@gasbuddy.com. We'd love to answer any of your inquiries. We got a lot in our inbox this week, frustrated about rising gas prices. We totally get it. And that's why we're here to let you know what's going on. But for this episode, I'm Patrick DeHaan. He's Matt McLean. We'll see you next time.